So in order to celebrate 70 years of the Stratocaster, Fender has come out and said that 2024 is the year of the Strat. So in honor of being around for 70 years, I wanted to break out my Strat and discuss why this instrument hasn't really changed much in 70 years since it's been around. But that got me thinking, the Les Paul really hasn't changed a whole lot since its inception either. And sure, the modern collection is making some strides and innovations, but let's be real here. When was the last time you talked to anybody who was going to purchase a Les Paul, at least a Gibson anyways, who wasn't shopping from the original classic collection? Then I saw some cool videos on PRS, and sure, they're making some headways, but the mojo really hasn't changed a whole lot since the 80s. Sure, their flame tops are getting more flame and beautiful, and their stains are just absolutely stunning. But usually when a guitar shape has taken form and its identity, it doesn't really change a whole lot once it is grabbed hold by the modern and masses that is the guitar world. And that got me thinking, if this is the year of the Strat and we're celebrating the Stratocaster and the music that's played on it, how come I don't play my Strat all that much? Let's get into it. It was an interesting question to me because I determined the quality of an instrument based on the feel and the shape of the guitar neck. And in the case of this 2012 Fender American Deluxe Stratocaster, it is literally the best guitar neck I have ever played in my entire life, and every guitar neck I have played since this one has been compared to this exact neck. It is perfect.
It was perfect. Perfect. Everything, down to the last minute details.
And then that bothered me even more. If this is the holy grail of guitar necks, why don't I play my Stratocaster? The funny thing is, back in 2013, when I graduated from college, my dad sat me down and said, hey, you can get whatever guitar you want as a graduation present. Literally, let's go to the store and whatever one you want, it's yours. It was a really nice present. Now you see, at the time, I was enamored by humbucker guitars. And this had always been kind of the case in my early guitar playing, but around that time, I was more interested in the humbucker guitars of Jerry Garcia's Tiger or Trey Anastasia's hollow-bodied Languedoc humbuckered guitars. It's a little bit more airy, a little bit less distortion, a little bit more bright and cheerfully sounding, if you will. And if we're being honest, I really wanted a PRS hollow body too. And not the SEs. The SE model wouldn't come out for at least another 7 more years. This was the core model that cost about $3,000. And while my dad said I could have any guitar, spending that much money on a guitar for a graduation present, it just didn't feel right to me at the time. But boy, do I wish I got it back then, especially looking at what those things are going for nowadays.
Oh my goodness!
So the idea of wanting a hollow body was out of the running. So I decided I'm gonna have a Gibson Les Paul. You see, being raised in the South and growing up kind of near the music city of the world, Gibson was kind of like the hometown guitar brand, if you will. And mind you, this is all before social media and everybody showcasing their amazing instruments. For Atlanta, like, Gibson was the closest guitar manufacturer you could get. And all my guitar heroes played them too, like ZZ Top's Billy Gibbons, Guns N' Roses' Slash, Aerosmith's Joe Perry, Dwayne Allman, Warren Hayes, Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Everybody and anybody that I loved growing up played a Gibson Les Paul. It was the sound. When I tell you that I played every single Les Paul outside of the custom shop in that Guitar Center, I mean, I played every one for at least 30 minutes. The guy who was helping me at the store was probably getting annoyed. My dad was getting kind of tired. And I was getting frustrated because none of them jived. None of them sounded good. None of them felt right. Either the neck was too thin, the body was too heavy, the sound was too muddy, the sound was too harsh and too angry, if that's the right way to say it. I was getting frustrated, and the guy helping me was like, I don't think this guy really knows what he's talking about and what he actually knows what he wants. And he said, you like Grateful Dead? You know, Jerry Garcia played the Stratocaster. I have one in mind that you might like. And the second that he gave me this guitar, I knew I had found the perfect instrument. I would play this instrument and this instrument alone. This guitar was the instrument that took me from barely being able to play, common riffs and licks to being able to play full songs and play shows on stage. This was the guitar that I played my first full gig with. It took me from a beginner guitar player to an intermediate guitar player. I learned my early guitar country chops on this guitar. I dabbled in some jazz fusion, and I think I learned every Grateful Dead, Fish, and Mo riff known to man on this one single guitar. It became my musical identity. That was until the day I started really getting into country guitar playing. Sure, I learned some basic chicken picking on it, and I learned the intro riffs to Should Have Been a Cowboy and Chattahoochee, but it just wasn't the Telecaster thing that I was going for. And thus began my fascination with finding the perfect guitar tone. Now, while this guitar plays phenomenally, the sound is, well, let's just say it's less than desired. So these bad boys have the N3 noiseless pickups that were top of the line at the time of production. And I heard something along the lines that Brent Mason uses stacked humbuckers as well in his famous Telecaster. And I'm like, hey, these are essentially stacked humbuckers. They're just the Fender version. So if it's good enough for Brent Mason, it's good enough for me. Forgetting that, in fact, I am not Brent Mason. I grew tired of the sound. It wasn't the sound that I had in my head, and I couldn't make that instrument sound like what I wanted it to. Now, mind you, at the time, my musical interests were shifting ever so slightly. Instead of the air jangly sounds of Fish and the Grateful Dead, I was more interested in the heavier jam prog rock sounds of Humphreys McGee, modern country, and even things like Mark Lettieri's solo albums. So my tonal center, if you will, was shifting towards the heavier side. And pretty soon I found myself in a modern country band and an 80s metal band, two opposite sides of the spectrum, both of which really you don't play Stratocasters on. I had built this Telecaster right there from parts from Weymouth, and I tried to match this neck with that neck from Weymouth. And if you're curious about that one and my discovery there, there'll also be a link in the description box below. Really cool process. Highly recommend anybody check out Weymouth if you want to have your dream guitar neck or even body built for you. And then I found that PRS, which is quite literally the best PRS for the money. I spent $600 for it at the time. It was an S2 Maryland made model. Phenomenal guitar. But at that point in time, I'm playing a Telecaster and a PRS primarily, because of those two bands. The PRS for the 80s metal band, and then the Telecaster for obviously the country band. But the way that my music had been focused and shifting, that PRS slowly became my number one guitar. And this Stratocaster started getting less and less use each passing day. So for 6 years, I played the exact same guitar every day. And then one day in 2019, my tonal quest led me astray, and I never looked back. Ironically, I got a Axe FX2 in 2019, the same time-ish. So maybe that old Marshall MG was in fact holding me back from tonal expression. Maybe. The MG line kind of sucked. So the Strat started sitting in the corner and collecting dust. At one point, I decided to change the tuning down to E flat, but playing Velvet Revolver Slither and Soundgarden Spoonman on a Strat just kind of felt sacrilegious. Didn't really sound that great either. And then flash forward to this past winter, I'm moving in with my fiance and I'm having to make some choices. What guitars do I want to bring to my new house? It's a little bit smaller. There's less room, so I can't have everything. The choice at the time was fairly obvious. I was going to take my Telecaster and my PRS because those are the sounds and the music that I was playing. And my Strat and my Ernie Ball went into storage. The Strat had literally gone from my number 1 to the back of the list, maybe to never be seen again. I then recently started a project to learn Guitar World's top 100 guitar solos of all time. Now, this was something that I had tried twice before and never made it past the first solo, Wanted Dead or Alive by Bon Jovi, mainly because Jeff Beck's "'Cause We Ended as Lovers" is an intense song. And the whole thing is a guitar solo. So like, instead of a 30-second guitar solo, we're talking 5.5 minutes. It's a little intimidating when you're not that great of a guitar player. And for that first guitar solo, Bon Jovi, I busted out my Ernie Balls. Like, I need kind of a super Strat sound. That's amazing. And then I started going down to, what does Jeff Beck use? Now on the cover of that record, Jeff Beck is seen playing a Gibson Les Paul, but it's known that he recorded that song on a Telecaster with Gibson humbuckers. But what is Jeff Beck really known for? He's known for playing Strats with a whammy bar, doing crazy, crazy whammy bar tricks. So I started thinking, okay, humbucker and whammy bar. The PRS S2 is perfect for it because it has both. Game, set, match. Or at least I thought it was, until I saw Rhett Scholl's video talking about why he doesn't play his Strat that much. And that led me to start this video. It led to the inspiration of this video. Like, why don't I play my Strat that much? And then even while I'm scripting this video out that you're watching, I decided, you know what? For "'Cause We Ended as Lovers," I'm going to play my Stratocaster. And that led me to take it out of storage and play this bad boy for the past week. And I tell you what, I have not put it down, and I have not grabbed a single other guitar other than to film that Ramble On Led Zeppelin piece earlier. I forgot how amazing this thing really plays. And now I've gotten the Fractal FM9 and Line 6 HX Stomp XL, and the amp modelers have come tremendously far away since even in 2018, and I couldn't tell you the joy that this Strat and these Stratty tones that are like iconic Stratty tones has been giving me this past week. And sure, the bridge tone of most Strats, especially the single coil ones, aren't the best in the world, but like amp modelers have come a long way since 2019, and so has my ability to dial in a decent guitar sound. So does that mean I'm 100% satisfied with my Strat and this is now my new number 1? Not exactly. I've often dreamed about doing the Jimmy Herring from Widespread Panic swap, where I swap out the 3 single coils and install 2 Lindley Fralin humbuckers in here. But if I'm being honest, I'm not there quite yet. If you have any suggestions of how to make my Strat sound better, let me know in the comment section below. Might inspire a future video, or it might give some inspiration to your fellow guitar players. Oh, and just in case you're wondering, when I brought this Strat out of the storage unit, it was perfectly in tune, and the intonation was absolutely perfect. Granted, it was, air-conditioned storage unit, but just goes to show you how much of a bomb-proof guitar Fender makes. This thing was untouched and unplayed for 6 months and was in storage in the middle of winter, and it still sounded and played fantastic. Just saying. Maybe there's a reason why much hasn't changed in 70 years. I'll see you in the next video. And until then, let the music play.